Let me tell you something. The Chicago Bulls didn't just cut a player on March 30th, 2026. They torched a future they spent real assets to build, and they did it in under 2 months. This isn't just a basketball story. This is about faith, identity, broken legs, broken trust, and an organization that keeps finding new ways to shoot itself in the foot. So buckle up, because the Jaden Ivey saga is one of the wildest player departures we've seen in years. To understand how badly this went wrong, you have to go back to the beginning. Jaden Ivey, 5th overall pick in the 2022 draft, straight out of Purdue, where he was a unanimous All-American and All-Big Ten stud. The kid arrived in Detroit and immediately looked like the real deal. 16.3 points, 5.2 assists, 3.9 boards per night as a rookie on a struggling Pistons squad. He earned all rookie honors and had everyone talking. Fast forward to the 2024-25 season, and he was ascending. Career best 17.6 points a night. The burst, the handles, the finishing, it was all clicking. Detroit management saw him as the perfect sidekick to Cade Cunningham, a dynamic backcourt duo that could anchor the franchise for the next decade. Then January 1st, 2025, against Orlando, he goes down with a fractured left leg. Season over. Just like that. The 2025-26 season was supposed to be his redemption arc. Instead, it was a slow, painful unraveling. He needed minor knee surgery that October just to manage lingering pain from the original injury. That pushed his return back to November, and when he finally did come back, he was a shell. 33 games, 2 starts, 8.2 points, 1.6 assists. The explosiveness, that lethal first step that made defenders panic, was just gone. Meanwhile, Detroit wasn't waiting around. The Pistons were flying in 2025-26. Best record in the East, Cade Cunningham in full MVP mode, Jalen Duren as the front runner for most improved. They didn't need a recovering guard riding the bench. So at the February trade deadline, they packaged Ivey in a 3-team blockbuster that also brought Mike Conley to Chicago. The Bulls sent Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric to Detroit and rolled the dice on Ivey's upside. On paper, understandable gamble. A 24-year-old former lottery pick with elite talent still on an expiring deal heading into restricted free agency. For a franchise rebuilding from scratch, that's a calculated risk. Arturas Karnisovas and the Bulls front office saw a reclamation project with a high ceiling, and they weren't wrong to see it. They were just wrong about almost everything else. Here's where it gets complicated. Ivey actually played well in his brief stint with Chicago. In 4 games, he averaged 11.5 points, 4.8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Shot 41.7% from the field. For a guy coming back from a fractured leg and knee surgery, that's not nothing. He cracked the starting lineup 3 times. But head coach Billy Donovan could see it with his own eyes. Once Ivey pushed past 30 minutes, his gears disappeared. No burst, no separation. The player who once blew by defenders like they were standing still was now just there. Donovan later admitted he'd spotted this regression in film from Detroit. Chicago knew going in, and they played him heavy minutes anyway. Then February 19th happened, and everything changed. Donovan was away from the arena that evening, grieving the passing of his father. In his absence, Ivey got 0 minutes, a DNP, and from what followed, it's clear that Ivey took it as a personal slight, the ultimate disrespect from a team that had just traded for him. Post-game, he stepped to the microphone and didn't talk basketball. He spoke in the third person. He said the old Jaden Ivey was dead. He pivoted every question about his knee, his minutes, his game, straight into scripture. He told the media that stats and benchings were temporary illusions, that his life now belonged entirely to Christ, that the game itself was secondary to his faith. Now, faith is personal, and nobody should take that away from him. But the timing, the tone, and the complete disconnect from his professional responsibilities set off alarms throughout the organization. Word out of Detroit started making more sense by the hour. Insiders had been saying for months that the Jaden Ivey who'd been drafted 5th overall was gone. Not injured, not slumping, but genuinely transformed. He and his wife Caitlin had a private backyard baptism back in June 2024, and since then, his faith had moved from personal conviction to constant public preaching. Teammates in Detroit had already been on the receiving end of locker room sermons. Chicago's front office knew this going in. Their scouting department knew, and somehow nobody dug deeper. That's the front office failure hiding in plain sight throughout this whole story. Then March hit, and Ivey went fully digital. Management shut him down on March 26th. Officially, his season was over due to the knee, but with nothing but free time and a phone, Ivey started streaming. 3 separate sessions, over 3 hours of total content, all recorded from inside his car. The first stream ran 75 minutes and immediately went viral, for all the wrong reasons. He riffed on morality, the end times, divine reckoning. He flat out said the Detroit Pistons' wins meant nothing in the cosmic scale of existence. He told his audience that God doesn't care about box scores or championship rings. Then he took a direct shot at the Catholic Church, calling it fraudulent, arguing it offered no genuine path to salvation. Here's the context that made that particularly explosive. His mother, Nyla Ivey, is the head coach of the Notre Dame women's basketball program. She played professionally, built her career at one of the most recognizable Catholic institutions in the world, and has spoken publicly about how the university's deep religious roots drew her there as a player and later as a coach. Her son publicly torched that exact belief system, and he did it 24 hours before she was set to coach Notre Dame's 6th-ranked squad in an Elite 8 matchup against the top-seeded Huskies. The fallout was immediate, and Ivey didn't back down. In his comment sections, he went at fans who pushed back, called their perspectives impure, told well-wishers the divine doesn't hear the prayers of the wicked. He openly discussed past battles with alcohol and explicit content, framing his current identity as a full resurrection, and the old Jaden Ivey as someone who needed to stay buried. Then he wiped his entire social media presence clean, just his kids' photos and those recordings, nothing else. Monday, March 30th, one more stream. This time, Ivey went after the NBA's LGBTQ+ inclusion initiatives directly, calling them immoral. He added incendiary takes on reproductive rights that crossed every line the organization had drawn internally. Chicago's front office moved at warp speed. Local reporters confirmed the team contacted the league office almost immediately to understand the legal path to a contract termination. By 5 p.m. that same day, done. One line in an official statement, the organization cited behavior highly destructive to the locker room. It was over. Let's be honest about the wreckage here. The Bulls gave up Kevin Huerter, a productive veteran shooter, and Dario Saric. They got 4 games and a PR catastrophe in return. Both outgoing assets are gone. The incoming asset is gone. The cap flexibility they were banking on, complicated. The draft capital, burned. And now Billy Donovan is standing in front of cameras, admitting he's searching the locker room for guys who actually want to compete. Those aren't the words of a confident coach. That's a man treading water. Karnisovas and the front office made a calculated bet and lost badly, not just because of the knee, but because of the due diligence they didn't do. You can't acquire a player with known off-court complexity and simply hope the change of scenery fixes everything. Hope isn't a scouting report. Meanwhile, Detroit is feasting. The Pistons went on a 13-game winning streak earlier in the season. Cade's in the MVP conversation. Kevin Huerter just dropped 22 points for them, looking absolutely lethal in his new role. The trade that was supposed to help Chicago heal, it helped Detroit dominate. That's the question everyone's dancing around. He's 24, elite bloodlines. His father Javon Hunter played in the NFL. His grandfather James Hunter suited up for the Lions. The genetics are undeniable. And there was a time, not long ago, when his basketball ceiling looked generational. But here's the reality. The leg fracture stole his burst. The knee surgeries grounded his vertical. The behavioral spiral torched his market value. Teams in Washington, Dallas, and Brooklyn were linked to him before this all exploded. But they were scouting the 2024 version, not the one we've watched these past few months. And Ivey himself, he told reporters his past basketball identity is completely buried, that the guy who played in Detroit and Chicago is gone, that his spiritual rebirth matters infinitely more than any sport. Maybe he means it. Maybe this is AJ Griffin all over again, a highly touted young player walking away from the game to follow a different calling. And honestly, if that's his path, that's his path. There's real compassion required here. Ivey has spoken openly about battling depression and emotional darkness. When an athlete starts broadcasting marathon rants from a parked car, erasing his digital identity, and declaring his old self dead, that goes beyond sports. That's a human being in serious pain. The basketball world owes him that acknowledgement. But for Chicago, this is just the latest chapter in a franchise stuck in quicksand. This is a 29-42 team, 10 games out of the play-in. This is an organization that has been botching its rebuild for years, while one of the most storied brands in basketball history collects dust. Cutting Ivey didn't create the dysfunction. It just ripped the curtain down and showed everyone exactly what's been hiding behind it. Stars around the league are watching, free agents are watching, and right now, what they're seeing out of Chicago isn't a destination, it's That's a warning sign. The Bulls need more than a roster fix this summer. They need a cultural reset, top to bottom. Because until that happens, it won't matter who they sign, who they draft, or what deals they swing at the deadline. The same results are waiting for them on the other side.